We begin with Agent Xavier Collins, on a morning jog, struggling to keep up as fellow agent Billy Pace taunts him about getting old. Billy jokes that while he can choke out an assailant, Collins would probably just run away. He tells Collins he needs to take the day off. Agent Jane Driscoll will cover for him. At home, Collins has breakfast with his kids, Presley and James, before heading to work. But his routine takes a deadly turn when he checks on President Cal Bradford, only to find him dead in a pool of blood. Hey there, welcome to the Recap of Paradise, 2025, on Hulu, starring Sterling K. Brown. Let's dive in. 5 years earlier, Collins first met Bradford, who immediately made an impression with a side of subtle racism. I hired you because you're the best, and because you're black. It'll look good when I'm kissing babies. Despite this, Bradford was charismatic, and Collins took the job as his protector. Present. Surveying the crime scene, Collins quickly realizes something is missing: the president's tablet. He calls Jane to lock down the building. Another flashback reveals Bradford's strained marriage. He suspected his wife didn't even vote for him, and believed she'd leave him as soon as his term was over, taking their kids with her. He asks Collins why he and his wife hadn't had more children. Collins explained that his wife, a scientist, wanted to focus on her work. Bradford replied, "That's a very, very smart move." At the time, Collins didn't understand what he meant. Breaking protocol, Collins calls in Billy to help. He reviews CCTV footage from the night before. Everything seems normal, except for two key interactions. Bradford had an argument with Samantha, aka Sinatra. Special Agent Robinson, who was having an affair with the president, visited for her usual late-night rendezvous. However, when she left, Bradford was still alive. At the end of the footage, one fact stands out. Collins was the last person to see the president alive. Billy arrives, and Collins instructs him to canvass the area. He notices some footprints around the president's window. Mike, the agent monitoring security footage, calls Collins with a disturbing find. After Collins left, Billy took over but then fell asleep for an hour and a half. Even worse, from 10:42 p.m. to 12:13 a.m., all security footage froze on the last image. The entire system was offline, and no one noticed because Billy was off in dreamland. At 12:13 a.m., the cameras came back on. Billy woke up just as Mike arrived for his shift. Jane, who was in charge of the control room, was on duty when the blackout happened. This means the president was killed sometime between 10:42 and 12:13 when no cameras were running. Collins orders Jane to officially call in the president's death. Soon, the First Lady arrives, but she's denied entry. Sinatra shows up immediately after, bringing key officials with her. As they question Collins about his final conversation with Bradford, we get another flashback. After Collins took a bullet for the president, Bradford and Sinatra entrusted him with top-secret information, the same data stored on the stolen tablet. The bombshell? The world was facing an impending extinction-level event. To prepare, the government had already begun constructing the world's largest underground city beneath the mountains in Colorado. Back in the present, Collins races home, determined to uncover Bradford's killer. Bringing out the president's cigarette pack he picked from the crime scene, with one cigarette stick with 6 numbers written on it, possibly a code. Then comes the biggest twist of all. The city where Collins, the president, and everyone else reside, it's already underground. They aren't in Washington, D.C. They aren't even on the surface. This entire society is living in a massive subterranean refuge because the apocalypse has already happened. 12 years before the present, Samantha, better known as Sinatra, assembles the brightest minds across various fields. On a private flight, she presents a challenge. If I gave you unlimited resources, could you design a city for 25,000 people that could withstand nuclear blasts and environmental collapse while still feeling like America? The lead architect balks, saying they'd need a space as big as Toledo, an impossible feat. But then Sinatra takes him underground, revealing a vast cavern the size of Toledo, and tells him simply, "Build my city." Collins is fixated on the strange 6-digit code written on the cigarette he picked up from the crime scene, trying to decipher its meaning. The city itself is showcased in all its eerie perfection: pristine streets, bustling markets, and a society eerily reminiscent of the surface world. Every citizen wears a wristband that functions as an all-in-one tool for identification, payment, and access. As Samantha writes a eulogy for President Bradford, we learn more about her past. She was the world's richest self-made woman, meeting her husband at a pub on the night she sold her startup, a deal that could make her worth $34 billion if the stock moved in her favor. They built a happy life together until their eldest son fell terminally ill. Collins wakes from a nightmare of a plane crash, haunted by the sound of his wife's voice on the phone. In the kitchen, Billy makes breakfast for Collins' kids, who adore him. But the morning is interrupted when Agent Robinson arrives, demanding that Collins come with her. On their drive, Collins confronts Robinson about leading the investigation, even though she was sleeping with the president. She insists she's clean. Bradford was alive when she left him. The city's leadership is in disarray, panicked that a man with full security detail was somehow murdered. Sinatra declares there was no murder. The president died of a heart attack. To maintain order, they'll announce his natural death at a town hall meeting and swear in Henry as the new president. Samantha and Dr. Gabriella Torabi, the president's therapist, observe Collins' lie detector interrogation. Robinson questions why he called Billy first, instead of going through official channels. Collins says Billy is the only person he trusts, especially since Robinson was having an affair with the president. Samantha and Gabriella don't react to this revelation, as if they already knew. Then Gabriella takes over. She asks Collins whether he's happy that Bradford is dead, subtly revealing "say yes" written on her palm. After a moment's hesitation, Collins says yes. Gabriella then argues that this confession proves he isn't a suspect. After all, why would a guilty man admit to hating the victim? Sinatra agrees, and Collins is placed on leave. In a flashback, we see Samantha's heartbreak as her son's illness worsens. Despite cutting-edge treatments, nothing worked. The doctor urged them to have the difficult conversation, but Samantha refused. Instead, she was introduced to Dr. Gabriella, a world-class grief specialist. 6 months after her son's death, Samantha was still shattered. She turned to Gabriella for help, saying she needed to function again. Somehow, it worked. She re-entered the world, attending a lecture about an impending tsunami that would submerge the entire eastern seaboard within a decade. Among the attendees, then Senator Bradford. After the talk, Bradford comforted Samantha, calling her Sinatra the true leader, the one his father always admired. He praised her brilliance, her charisma, and the way people listened when she spoke. Samantha downplayed it, revealing her struggle with compulsively pulling out her hair, a reminder that she wasn't as perfect as people thought. But when the speaker passed by, Samantha stopped him, asking what could be done to prevent the coming catastrophe. His response? Dig the biggest hole you can find and get in. That moment changed everything. Fearing for her daughter's future, Samantha pursued the idea further, setting into motion the creation of the underground city. In the present, an alert goes out for the town hall meeting. Even the president's son, Jeremy, receives it at school, but instead of attending, he heads to the library, where Presley follows. There, Jeremy tearfully confesses his guilt. Just before his father's death, they had a fight, and in anger, he told his dad he wished he were dead. At the town hall, the leadership announces that Bradford died of natural causes, officially swearing in Henry as the new president. The First Lady approaches Collins, assuring him that Bradford adored and loved him. Later, Collins confides in Billy, asking if he knows of any significant 6-digit codes in the city. He's still obsessing over the cigarette. He also admits that he doesn't trust Samantha, sensing something deeply wrong with her, and would take her down. Billy warns him that Sinatra is the most powerful person down here, but Collins says they will just have to do it carefully. Meanwhile, Jeremy shows Presley the planes they arrived on, revealing their 6-digit tail numbers. Back at home, Collins quietly burns the cigarette. Was the 6-digit code on it a plane number? The episode ends with a flashback. Samantha sits beside her dying son, asking him what heaven looks like. He says, just like here, but with more horse rides. And just like that, the meaning behind the city's countless horses becomes clear. Samantha built this world not just for survival, but as a reflection of the paradise her son dreamed of. Collins is lost in thought, reminiscing about his father, a pioneer as one of the first black pilots. But there's no time for sentimentality. He's got a morning jog to maintain. Except now, Billy is the one lagging behind, out of breath. Billy questions why they're even doing this. Collins explains that if they're going to take down Sinatra, their meetings need to look routine. Billy thinks grabbing a beer would be more natural, but Collins points out that bars are too crowded, too many eyes. Billy then brings up the elephant in the room. Why is Collins the prime suspect in the president's death when he should be leading the investigation? Billy himself fell asleep on duty that night, yet all the scrutiny is on Collins. Collins admits it's because he was the last person to see the president alive and waited 30 minutes to report the death. That's all it takes to make him the prime suspect. After his jog, Collins heads to Gabriella's office to confront her about why she told him to say yes during the interrogation. Spooked, she suggests they go for a walk, hinting that her office might be bugged. The autopsy results are in. The murder weapon? A rock, confirmed by soil found in the president's head wound. The president was first struck while standing on his right side, then fatally hit again while he was already down. DNA results are expected in a day or two. Robinson, still shaken by the president's death, finds herself lost in memories of him. The moment takes a dark turn as she imagines herself covered in blood until Sinatra snaps her back to reality, demanding she stay focused and recover the missing tablet. If not, Sinatra will find someone else who can. Robinson updates Billy and Jane, who are acting suspiciously. Mike suggests tracking the digital fingerprint of whoever shut down the CCTV system at the time of the murder. Sinatra has plans to smooth things over with the new president, but warns Robinson that she better have answers when she gets back. Back on their walk, Gabriella finally confirms Collins' suspicions. She does believe Sinatra and the billionaires running the city are bugging her office. But before she spills more, she takes a detour to showcase one of her contributions to the underground city: artificial nature sounds. From recorded insect noises to simulated outdoor ambience, everything is designed to make life underground feel just like the surface. She shifts the conversation to their first encounter, revealing that she was once Collins' therapist, just one session, a long time ago. She also confesses that she saw the president the day before he died, and he seemed exhausted and burdened, like something was weighing on him in his final week. Collins, intrigued by how much she knows about the city, presses for more details. Gabriella reveals that she helped design it, the psychological elements meant to make it feel like home. She was brought in to create a community for people stricken with grief. She also shares how she first met Samantha. Before revealing anything more, she asks Collins to open up about his father. At first, Collins resists, but eventually, he opens up. His father was a pilot, and he had planned to follow in his footsteps until his poor eyesight forced him to change course. That's when he joined the Secret Service. Around that time, his father was diagnosed with Parkinson's, but he refused to stop flying. Seeing the tremors in his father's hands, Collins secretly submitted his retirement papers without telling him, causing a deep rift between them. Ultimately, Parkinson's claimed his father's life. Gabriella, impressed by Collins' moral compass, finally decides to trust him and shows her hand. Collins, in turn, shares his deepest resentment. When the evacuation happened, his wife, Terry, was in another city. Bradford had the power to get her on the plane but didn't, leaving her behind to die. The digital tracking confirms that Billy has been shutting off the security cameras for months, and he and Jane, who are having a secret relationship, are brought in for questioning by Robinson to Sinatra. The reason? They had been sneaking the president to a secure bunker. Afterward, they'd return to his room, play his games, and even sleep in his bed. But nothing bad has ever happened until now. Sinatra is furious at their recklessness. Collins asks Gabriella about the numbers on the cigarette pack, but she has no answers. He also questions why he was chosen to be among the 25,000 brought to the bunker in the first place. Gabriella reveals the truth. She chose him. She had personally recommended him to the president as his lead agent, and the president agreed. This was before the conversation Collins had with the president in episode 1. She explains that Collins was her wild card. She needed someone with a strong moral compass who would do the right thing if things went south. Collins presses her again about the say yes moment, but instead of answering, she kisses him. They move to the shower, where the running water ensures no one is listening, and they share an intimate moment. Then, Gabriella drops a final bombshell. Before his death, Bradford had told her if anything happened to him, she was supposed to find Collins, and he wanted her to tell Collins that Billy is dangerous. The episode ends with Billy pulling up near Collins' house, with Presley watching the street, wondering where her father has been. Billy Pace's past is a brutal one. Growing up in the Wild West under the iron fist of an abusive uncle, Billy learned early that survival meant taking matters into his own hands. When his uncle tried to force him to shoot his own dog, Billy turned the gun on him instead. That one act set his future in stone. Prison became his second home, where he hardened into something dangerous. But just when his life seemed doomed to endless incarceration, a mercenary freed him, shaping him into a ruthless killing machine. Now in the present, Billy jolts awake from a nightmare, with Jane by his side. She's excited about the carnival today, an event meant to lift spirits before the president's funeral. Collins wakes up in Gabriella's bed, realizing his daughter might be worried about him. As he leaves, he texts Billy, saying they need to talk. We rewind to the day everything changed. As people are herded into the bunker, they're given wristbands for identification. Robinson is in full control, directing the crowd. Billy is sent to find Collins, informing him they've been ordered to secure the area and move people into their designated residences. Inside, Collins and Billy are shocked to see the bunker stocked with a fully operational bar. Turns out, the bartender's wife is the best atmospheric scientist in the world, so they had to bring her along. As a bonus, her husband claims to be the best bartender in the world. The president prepares to address the people, with Billy and Collins assigned as his security detail. Back in the present, Collins stops by his house, where his daughter questions him about staying out all night. She mentions she's heading to the carnival to help Jeremy's band set up. Billy still hasn't replied to Collins' message, so he heads over to Billy's place. Through the window, he spots Billy inside, despite Billy texting that he wasn't home. That's shady. Collins starts digging through Billy's file, uncovering the grim details of his past, his long stint in prison, his history of violence. Before he can process it, Jane interrupts him. Collins asks if Billy has been acting strange, but she insists he's fine. As she leaves, Robinson watches Collins. Collins flashes back to a moment in the bunker when Billy first opened up about his past. Before Paradise, his life had been one disaster after another, no real friends, just constant chaos. But here, he finally felt normal. Over time, Collins grew to trust him, even introducing Billy to his kids, who affectionately started calling him Uncle Billy. That trust is exactly why Collins is so torn now. At the carnival, Jeremy performs on stage while Presley, Collins' daughter, sulks. She's crushing hard on Jeremy, but feels stuck in the friend zone. Billy, playing the role of big brother figure, encourages her to take a chance. You see me and Jane? I was scared to tell her how I felt, but then I said, screw it. And now look at us. Collins arrives with his son James, who's terrified of the Ferris wheel. As Collins reassures him, he notices Billy deep in conversation with Robinson and Sinatra. His suspicions deepen. Gabriella shows up, and Collins introduces her to James before asking her to watch his son while he goes to confront Billy. Flashing back again, the president frequently visited the bunker's bar, guarded by Collins and Billy. People whispered about whether the world above was truly gone. The president insisted nothing could have survived, but Collins wasn't so sure. In an effort to provide real answers, the president sent 4 scientists, including the bartender's wife, to investigate the surface. Now in the present, Billy warns Collins, "You need to stop. These people aren't playing around." Collins presses him. Why lie about being home? Billy insists it's because Jane was over, and he didn't want Collins knowing about their relationship. Collins doesn't buy it. Did you kill the president? And I brought you around my kids. Billy explodes. Your kids are my world. I follow them around to make sure nothing happens to them. He's furious that Collins doubts him. And that's when Collins realizes Billy didn't do it. Collins tells Gabriella that Billy isn't the killer. But if that's true, what was the president trying to tell them? Turns out Billy was sent to eliminate the scientists who had gone to the surface, including the bartender's wife. Why? Because they found something. The air outside is breathable. Life still exists beyond paradise. And those orders? They came directly from Sinatra. She wanted to ensure no one ever tried to leave. Billy storms into Sinatra's office, warning her to stay the hell away from Collins and his kids. But Sinatra isn't intimidated. I give the orders, Billy, not you. She reminds him that she brought him into paradise for a reason. He's a mercenary, nothing more. And if he thinks she won't take everything away from him, he's dead wrong. As Billy turns to leave, she delivers the final warning. You think you're the only killer I brought in here? Billy, never one to back down, says, if you're gonna send someone for me, it better be the biggest motherfucker you got. Later, Billy visits Collins, admitting he didn't kill the president but that he's done things that may have led to his death. I've seen bad people, he says. But Sinatra? She's the worst. He promises to tell Collins everything tomorrow. That night, Billy returns home, ready to celebrate with Jane. She hands him a beer, but as he drinks it, his body suddenly collapses. Jane kneels beside him, whispering in his ear. You told her to send the biggest motherfucker she had. I am it. And just like that, she stages his death, ensuring Sinatra's grip on paradise remains unchallenged. In 1997, a young Bradford dreams of becoming a high school teacher, but his billionaire father, Kane, shuts him down. Politics is his only option, whether he likes it or not. Years later, it's the day of Bradford's funeral, and tensions are running high. Collins, preparing to leave with his kids, momentarily loses track of James, only to find him at their neighbor Carl's place playing with his dog, which is forbidden. No pets are allowed in paradise, and Collins has been keeping his secret for years. Collins warns him to be careful, but Carl reassures him. Whatever Collins needs, he's got him. The illusion of paradise deepens. The event coordinator requests a change in the sky's cloud cover to something more somber, fitting for a funeral. Even the weather here is manufactured. At the funeral, Jeremy delivers a eulogy for his father. But the memories aren't all fond. Bradford's son had always resented him for staying complicit in the grand deception, hiding the truth about the end of the world from people. As if things weren't tense enough, Kane, now battling dementia, suddenly appears. Billy tries to stop him, but Kane has something to say. He rants about his book, calls Billy sniper, and makes cryptic remarks about Bradford being weak. Then, he drops a bombshell. You thought they were lost at sea, those 4? And they did it under your nose. Bradford dismissed his father's cruelty as the ramblings of dementia, but the truth was lurking beneath the surface. At the funeral, Collins grows uneasy when Jane says she hasn't heard from Billy. He's convinced something is wrong, and insists they check on him. But before he can leave, Robinson pulls him aside with troubling news. The DNA sample she sent for testing never reached the lab. Only someone powerful could block it. And that someone is Sinatra. She wants to work together, but Collins doesn't trust her. In a flashback, Bradford tells Robinson how his father was among the first people Sinatra recruited to build paradise. His expertise in subsurface geology made him invaluable, and when the time came, he handpicked Bradford to be president. Robinson reassures him, no matter how he got here, he's carried an unimaginable burden. Bradford, still reflecting on Kane's words, asks Robinson if his father ever called her by a nickname. He then brings up Sniper, the name Kane uses for Billy. Robinson is confused. How could anyone be a sniper in a place with no real guns? That's when Bradford hints at a hidden truth. You think the people who built this place would leave themselves defenseless? That revelation shakes Robinson. She's supposed to be the top agent, yet she never knew weapons existed here. Bradford, unfazed, brushes off their relationship as an illicit affair and walks away. Later, Bradford dwells on his father's cryptic phrase, "lost at sea." He digs through his tablet, discovering a classified file. First transmission. Despite being the president, he's locked out. That is, until he uses his sleeping father's fingerprint to gain access. What he finds changes everything. The recovered video and audio revealed that a surface expedition team, including the bartender's wife, had found a woman on the surface. They wanted to bring her back to paradise. But Sinatra had other plans. She forced Billy to kill them all. Bradford records the details in his diary and hides the truth within a music mixtape for his son. Fearing for his life, he visits Gabriella, warning her, "Billy is dangerous. If anything happens to him, Collins needs to know." That night, he invites his son for dinner, but before he can reveal the truth, he makes one last move, confronting Sinatra about her role in eliminating the expedition team. He tells her that he intends to reveal the truth and wants to bring survivors to paradise. But Sinatra shuts him down. The heated argument was interrupted by Collins. Collins and Jane arrive at Billy's house, only to find him dead. Jane immediately switches into the role of a grieving partner. She should be an actress. Oh, she already is. At the bar, drowning in sorrow, Collins is approached by Robinson, who brings more bad news. The coroner ruled Billy's death a suicide fentanyl poisoning, but Collins knows Billy would never do that. Sinatra killed him. With nothing left to lose, Collins and Robinson form an uneasy alliance. She lost her love, he lost his brother, and together, they'll take Sinatra down. But there's one problem. How do you fight back in a place with no weapons? Robinson smirks. There are weapons, and I know how to get them. Jeremy drowns himself in guilt, regretting not showing up to his father's dinner invitation the night he died. Presley comforts him, and just as they're about to kiss, Kane interrupts, grabbing Presley and saying, "I saw you. I know you." Shaken, Presley leaves. Flashback continues. After his fight with Robinson and his son ignoring his dinner invite, Bradford texts Robinson, apologizing and asking her to come over. She does, but she's done playing his secret mistress. "I can't keep coming over like a hooker," she snaps. Desperate to keep her, Bradford reveals the location of the hidden weapons, along with the passcode, his inauguration date. He promises her that once his presidency ends, he'll divorce his wife and be with her. "I love you," he says. But Robinson still walks away. Defeated, Bradford turns to the only person who's ever controlled his life, his father. He asks Kane if, after everything he's sacrificed, he's finally made him proud. Kane doesn't hesitate. "You never did anything I didn't do for you," he says. The words cut deep. That night, Bradford writes down a number on a cigarette stick, the last message he'll ever leave. And then, the rest is history. Back in the present, Collins breaks the news to his daughter about Billy's death. He tells her to grab her brother and their backpacks. It's time to go. Then, he heads to Carl's place. "I need to call in that favor." Jeremy confronts Kane, furious that he scared Presley. But Kane doesn't remember. As Jeremy turns to leave, Kane, thinking he's talking to Bradford, finally says the words his son longed to hear. "I'm not proud of anything I did, but I am very proud of you. And I'm sorry, son." Jeremy, playing along, forgives him and walks away. But as Kane continues to read, something clicks. He does remember seeing Presley the night Bradford was murdered. At the same time, Presley, following Collins' orders, grabs her backpack. Hidden underneath her bed is Bradford's tablet. The episode closes with Collins' neighbor sneaking into the Sky operating room. Collins staring straight into a newly fixed streetlight near his house, suspecting it has a camera. And Sinatra is watching. Moments later, a chilling message flashes across the pixelated sky. "They're lying to you." A silent message from him to her. He knows, and he's coming for her. We open with a flashback to Collins and his wife, Dr. Terry Collins, at their daughter Presley's school. This is our first time meeting Terry, and we learn that this was the day she was leaving for Atlanta. Collins clearly isn't thrilled about the trip. They've been called in by Presley's principal. Turns out, Presley took a very hands-on approach to her school project on food inequity. She made a white student the billionaire, and had the rest of the class, representing impoverished countries, chant at him to eat a ridiculous amount of cake. The boy ate so much he threw up. Terry defends Presley, arguing the kid didn't have to eat the cake, and Presley was just proving a point. Collins, however, reminds her they pulled a lot of strings to get Presley into this school. They cannot afford to piss off the other parents. Terry isn't having it. She calls the boy a Cobra Kai-level bully, and says Presley was just giving him a taste of his own medicine. Then she makes a prediction. Collins may be calm and collected now, but one day someone is going to push him too far, and he's going to snap. Later, Collins mentions the incident to President Bradford, who finds it hilarious. But the conversation quickly turns serious. Bradford wants Collins to walk him through the Versailles Protocol, the government's secret plan for evacuating the president and top officials in case of an extinction-level event. Collins complies but then pushes for answers. He knows something catastrophic is coming, but he doesn't know when or what it is. Bradford won't tell him. Instead, he advises Collins to put his foot down about Terry's frequent trips to Atlanta. Collins argues that she won't listen without details, but Bradford says if it comes down to it, they'll just have to go pick her up. Back to the present. The cryptic message in the sky remains unchanged the next day, and Sinatra is furious. Their engineers are locked out of the system, meaning they cannot remove the message. Collins' neighbor and his children are placed in a safe house, but Presley isn't sticking around. She sneaks out. Sinatra calls Gabriella, assuming she already knows what Collins is up to. When she realizes Gabriella is just as in the dark as she is, she twists the knife by bringing up Gabriella's shower escapades with Collins. Imagine letting a man do all that, and he still didn't tell you his plans. Gabriella is livid. I picked you up from the floor, Samantha, and you violated the privacy of my home? Sinatra doesn't back down. Instead, she orders Gabriella to go find out what Collins is planning before he ruins everything they built. Gabriella tracks down Collins, but he's not interested in negotiating. Instead, he gives her a simple message to relay to Sinatra. He's coming for her, and he breaks off his wristband. Turns out, Collins knew Sinatra was watching him all along and used his conversation with Gabriella to buy time while Robinson and his team stole the weapons. Sinatra realizes Collins' kids are now offline. Searching through his known associates, she finds out Robinson is also offline, and that the last time her wristband was used, it was to access a sub-basement. Sinatra immediately puts two and two together. They're stealing the weapons. She sends a team to check, only to confirm her worst fear. The weapons are gone. Collins and Robinson gather their most trusted allies to form their rebel faction. Collins considers recruiting Jane, believing she's loyal, but Robinson argues she's a rookie and not ready for this fight. Just then, the sky display changes again. This time it reads, "Do you want to know the truth?" Gabriella, watching from headquarters, demands answers. What does Collins have on you? Sinatra refuses to answer. Instead, she turns to the sky operators and orders them to fix it now. The lead engineer says the only way to reset the sky is to shut the entire system down and reboot it. Gabriella immediately says absolutely not. Shutting it down would mean people would remember. They'd relive everything and realize they're living in a cave. The illusion of normalcy would be shattered. Sinatra brushes off her concern. They already know it's a cave. Gabriella urges her to talk to Collins instead of escalating. Sinatra listens and orders Jane to find Collins. Presley tracks down Jeremy. She tells him about the tablet she took the night the president died. We learn that Presley used to play games with Billy at the president's house. The night the president was murdered, she found his tablet, took it, and left, hoping it held answers about her mother. Jeremy asks his grandfather to unlock it. While waiting, Presley notices a flower design on a piece of paper one that Kane uses to mark his books. Then, it hits her. She saw that same design on the jacket of someone leaving the president's house the night he was killed. The billionaires call a meeting, demanding answers from Sinatra. How the hell did someone steal all the weapons? Sinatra spirals as they bombard her with questions. At that exact moment, the sky changes again. This time, the message is a countdown, asking WHO is Sinatra. Sinatra panics. Collins mimics gunfire with a machine and directs it at the sky room. Sinatra panics and orders them to shut it down, plunging paradise into darkness. The entire town is thrown into chaos. Protests break out. Jeremy addresses the people, confirming their worst fears. He tells them that whoever wrote those messages is right. They've been lied to. He has seen the audio and video proof of the scientists Sinatra sent Billy to kill. Jane tracks Jeremy's wristband. She finds him with Presley. Using Billy's death as an excuse, she convinces Presley to leave with her. Collins, having already run through this exact scenario with the president during their Versailles Protocol training, executes his plan. His team surrounds the safe house, where all the important officials are supposed to be brought, using Paradise's darkness as cover. But something's wrong. As Sinatra's car approaches the safe house, it suddenly turns back. Collins follows. He finally gets to a place, but finds Gabriella instead. He realizes Gabriella tipped her off. Gabriella urges Collins to talk to Sinatra. Collins finally confronts her as the sky comes back on, and then Sinatra drops a bombshell. Terry is alive. If Collins stops his operation, Sinatra will help him find her. Flashback to October 28, 1962. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world teetered on the brink of nuclear war, but one man's decision altered history, preventing global catastrophe. Back in the present, Collins holds Sinatra at gunpoint, calling her claim that Terry is alive complete BS. Sinatra hits him with, Expedition 4 didn't die from the environment. They were killed because they were bringing back a survivor. The expedition team had set up a shortwave radio to communicate with Sinatra, but after their deaths, she kept listening. What she heard? There are survivors outside, and they're looking for missing family members trapped in paradise. Collins refuses to believe it. Atlanta was hit directly. No one could have survived. But Sinatra tells him, "The president did something that day, something you don't know about." Flashback: the day the world ended. A massive seismic event under Antarctica triggers a tsunami, throwing the White House into chaos. Collins frantically calls and texts his wife, Terry. He also calls his kids' school, urging them to stay close to Jeremy Bradford, the president's son. High-ranking military officials argue about whether to initiate Versailles Protocol, their doomsday contingency plan. Bradford, furious, demands answers. Scientists promised warnings, yet the catastrophe struck without any. With most of the world already dark, the government votes in favor of Versailles Protocol. Collins finally gets through to Terry. She's trapped in Atlanta. As the protocol is initiated, Collins guides Bradford out of the White House. But their evacuation is interrupted when a news anchor is swallowed by a tsunami on live TV. Panic erupts. As chaos spreads, Collins prioritizes his children's safety, telling Presley and her brother to stay close to the president's kid. He reassures them, "You'll be fine, there's a plan." But Marcia, a White House staffer, overhears and demands to know what plan, and if she needs to go get her son. Collins dodges the question. Collins tells Bradford Terry is stuck in Atlanta. Bradford tells him to talk to the general, who might be able to get her out. The general gives Collins an order. Terry must reach Dobbins Air Reserve Base in 1 hour, 15 minutes, or she won't make it. Collins checks the map. Terry won't get there in time. Desperate, Collins rushes to the control room, demanding they pull up the fastest route. They provide an alternate path. Terry finally calls back, but she doesn't have a car. Collins tells her, "Steal one." Marcia pleads with Collins to save her son, Edward. As Terry races against time, worldwide destruction worsens. Nations launch nuclear missiles in blind retaliation, trying to protect themselves. Inside the White House, Bradford notices a janitor still calmly cleaning. The man still believes humanity will persevere. This changes something in Bradford. People deserve to know the truth. He orders an emergency broadcast, revealing the full scale of the catastrophe, so people can say their final goodbyes. Collins, anticipating the chaos this will trigger, gears up with his team. Marcia begs Bradford to save her son, who's waiting at the gate with her sister. But it's too late. Only those pre-selected for evacuation will survive. As the staff riots, Marcia turns on Collins. "You promised to save Edward. His blood is on your hands." The situation escalates. Civilians storm the White House as Collins and his team fight their way out, shooting their way to the evacuation plane. At the airfield, they prepare to board under heavy fire. One agent refuses to stay behind, pulling a gun on Collins. Robinson doesn't hesitate. She shoots the agent dead and stays behind, ensuring their departure. Getting to Air Force One, that would take them to Colorado. Collins still doesn't want to leave, not without Terry. That's when he realizes Bradford knew all along that Terry wouldn't make it. Collins loses it. "If you had told me, I would have kept her close. I would have prepared." But Bradford urges him to focus on survival for his children. Collins, broken, boards the plane. They fly to Colorado, leaving the world behind. On the flight, Bradford apologizes and hands Collins a satellite phone, his last chance to contact Terry. Suddenly, the military detects a nuclear missile heading their way. The military suggests launching a counterattack. If the incoming missiles hit them, their survival would be impossible. But Bradford hesitates. Instead of firing nukes, he tells Sinatra there is a failsafe, a Cold War-era EMP array designed to disable all electronics on Earth, created after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Sinatra strongly opposes the move. Disabling all tech will leave Paradise blind to the outside world. Bradford, unwavering, activates the EMP. Most missiles are disabled, but not all. Collins, on call with Terry, watches in horror as one missile remains active, heading straight for Atlanta. Their final goodbye is cut short as the connection drops. Collins watches the explosion. Present, Collins tells Sinatra, "I saw the bomb hit Atlanta." But Sinatra plays a radio transmission and a voice comes through. "Terry, alive." She's searching for Collins. Collins snaps, aiming his gun at Sinatra. "Tell me where she is now." Sinatra just smirks. "You might want to check on your daughter first." Giving him the phone, Mark confirms Presley is not at the safe house she's meant to be. And then Sinatra drops another bombshell. The DNA found on the president's body didn't match anyone in Paradise, which means someone from the outside killed him. If Collins wants to see his wife and daughter again, Sinatra gives him a choice. Find the president's killer. Return the weapons stolen from her. Release the officials his rebel team took. Restore Paradise to its original state. 12 years ago, the beginning of Paradise. Sinatra led Anders to the underground site where Paradise would be built, and that's where we met Trent, the project manager. Every day, he oversaw the workers, including one man, Adam, aka Abdur Rahman, who planned to send all his earnings to his mother. Seeing the pain in Adam's eyes, Trent took a liking to him, and they grew close. One day, Trent discovered iron arsenic sulfide deposits, highly toxic to humans. He warned Anders, but the only thing Anders cared about was whether the site's integrity would hold. When Trent insisted that the workers would die a painful death, Anders dismissed him, promising to fix it. The next day, Trent was fired. When he confronted Anders, he learned 2 things. 1, this was never a recycling facility. 2, something catastrophic was coming. Trent tried warning the media, but no one listened. Desperate, he attempted to assassinate President Bradford, but Collins took the bullet for him. Present day. Collins, now free from Sinatra's grasp, told Robinson everything. Together, they set out to find Bradford's true killer. Henry addressed the public, finally admitting that Bradford's death was foul play. He urged people to stay indoors, and the rebels surrendered their weapons. At Paradise's control room, Sinatra spiraled as Jeremy exposed the secrets on the president's tablet to the public, including news that the scientists had found a survivor on the surface. She asked that they wipe the tablet remotely clean. Gabriella tried to calm Sinatra down, but she dismissed her, saying she'd done terrible things. Presley was still being held hostage by Jane, though Presley didn't realize it yet. When she tried to leave, Jane insisted that she stay. Then, Sinatra called Jane with a chilling order. Presley needed to be eliminated. If Presley talked, she could expose Jane, and by extension, Sinatra. Jane agreed, but then casually asked for a Wii game. Sinatra, baffled, asked if she was insane. Jane hung up. Later, Jane texted Sinatra. Problem eliminated. But was Presley really dead? Collins returned to the president's mansion, searching for clues. He remembered how Bradford always made mixtapes, and found one labeled, For Jeremy. Listening to it, he heard Bradford say he had gone to the library to make the tape and hide state-held secrets. Collins connected the dots. The number on Bradford's cigarette was a book serial number. He rushed to the library and found a book containing notes about Sinatra, Billy Pace, and even an escape route out of Paradise. Robinson confronted Gabriella, demanding confidential psych evaluations from arrival day. Gabriella resisted, but Robinson insisted. They discovered that one resident wasn't who she claimed to be. Maggie, the waitress. Gabriella, suspicious, went to get lunch, and Maggie served her. Robinson slid in with a gun, telling Maggie not to move. Gabriella revealed the real Maggie carried an EpiPen, and the current meal would have sent her into a fatal allergic shock. Busted, fake Maggie broke down. He made me do it. But who was he? Simultaneously, Collins was knocked out by Trent, the librarian. When Collins regained consciousness, he found himself tied up, with Trent standing over him. Trent confessed to his crimes, and expressed surprise that Collins didn't recognize him. Trent reminded Collins that Collins had been shot by him back in the day. We flash back to Trent's story. After his failed assassination attempt on President Bradford, Trent was sent to a prison in Colorado. He tried to convince his dying friend Adam to fight, but Adam, who had lost hope. A prison riot broke out, and most of the prisoners, including Trent, escaped. Trent managed to steal guards' clothes and stopped a couple stuck in traffic, a librarian and his wife, who were headed to Paradise. They were on the Versailles list, and Trent told them that he knew a shortcut to get to their destination. The couple, believing he was a real cop, agreed to go with him. Trent killed both of them and took their identities and entered Paradise with not Maggie, who was crying in her car, believing her life was over. Once inside, he became a librarian, and she became a waitress. He was getting comfortable with his new life and decided to let go of the past. But when Bradford visited the library, all of Trent's pain and rage resurfaced. That very night, he broke into Bradford's home and killed him, but he immediately regretted it and felt hollow. Trent left Collins tied up and took the book that contained the way out of Paradise. Collins begged for it to find his wife, but Trent ignored him and left. Robinson reached the library just in time to free Collins. Cornered, Trent revealed that Paradise was built on the blood of workers, and it's just another prison before jumping to his death. Collins stormed into Sinatra's office, demanding to know where Presley was, as he has upheld his part of the deal. But instead of answering, Sinatra whispered an apology, saying things had gone too far, and God forgive her. Collins, overwhelmed, broke down in tears. Then, in a blind rage, he shot her guards and put a bullet in her face. But before he could finish her off, Jane shot Sinatra herself, stopping Collins. Jane assured him, "Presley is fine. I saved her." Collins left, and Jane leaned over Sinatra, saying, "You're more valuable to me alive than dead." Collins reunited with his kids and hugged them tight. Robinson and his daughter urged him to use the president's book to escape Paradise. Jeremy finally listened to his father's mixtape. In it, Bradford left him with a final message. "If you don't like the world I built, fix it." The season finale ends with Collins embarking on his journey to the surface, the billionaires and elites scrambling and Henry taking control, and Sinatra was hospitalized, her fate uncertain.